In 2021, SimGrid partnered up with VCO Esports to bring you the SimGrid VCO World Cup. It was comprised of 5 events, 2 24-hour races and 3 12-hour races, which is an incredible challenge for any team in a tight title race. There were 5 different winners across all 5 of those races, and it left us with the champions of Simware.pro by Vides, and of course, that feeling of wanting more. Well, more is finally here. Hello everyone and welcome along for a super special event. The SimGrid VCO World Cup is back on World Cup weekend for a one-off 12-hour race around here at Kyalami with a whopping $10,000 prize pool on the line for just one race. Who will come out on top through the thrills and spills of this great and treacherous racetrack? Well, there's all things endurance racing we already know. Only time will tell. Before we get to the racing tomorrow, though, we've got qualifying to deal with. And I'm Lewis McGlade. I'll be taking you through the broadcast day with the one and only David Addison in the booth. David, it's your debut here in the SimGrid and quite a special event to be a part of. It's going to be a great qualifying session.
It is. Qualifying is always fantastic, Lewis. You're quite right. Yes, it is a SimGrid debut. You see, you can teach old dogs new tricks. And I'm looking forward to this hugely because not only is Kyalami a great circuit, not only is it a mega entry and it's going to be mighty busy for Q1, but just park the race for a moment. And as you've been saying, a lot can go on in that. But there's something really pure about qualifying. In a way, it is only a means to an end. As soon as the race starts tomorrow, you forget all about this. But for the next four elements, Q1, 2, 3 and Super Pole, you've got one guy and one clock, and it's one against the other. And it is absolutely fascinating because it's the one time of the weekend, the one time of the whole race that he doesn't have to think about a strategy or looking after the machinery. Q1 is about not being slow. It's about being in that top 20. After that, it's about being as quick as you can be. And this is where the real star drivers are going to come to the fore.
Yeah, absolutely. It's going to be an incredible run all the way through. It's going to be a brutal run. Like I say, we're starting with 49 teams. And you were quite right there. It's not a standard qualifying session. We're just leaving it open for 20 minutes and then seeing who gets pole position and saying goodbye. No. We have split this all up. If you've ever joined us for the Coach Dave time attack, you know kind of roughly how this is going to work. In Q1, the top 20 will go through into Q2. So we'll be saying goodbye to 29 teams. After that, it'll be the top 10 will go through from Q2 into Q3, and then the top 5 will go through into a Super Pole session where we'll discuss exactly how that's going to work. Before we get into any of that, though, I think we probably need to catch up with one person who is quite good when it comes to this kind of qualifying format. Dara McCormack joins us in the commentary booth. And Dara, I mean, you're coming as a bit of weight on your shoulders. We all know how good you are when it comes to these qualifying. Two-time champion, of course, of the Coach Dave time attack. What are we expecting to see from you out there? What are you expecting to see from the rest of the grid?
Well, personally, I don't expect anything less than to get to the Super Pole. Personally, I've put in a lot of practice. I've put in a lot of work into the setup, so I want to see it come through. I want to show what we can do for sure. Yeah, I think the car is the quickest by the looks of it, so it's really good. I think it's pretty much just left up to me to not mess up, basically. So yeah, I'm a good bit of weight on my shoulders for this one, but I think I can handle it.
And talk to us about car selection, because of course when we've spoken to you in the Coach Dave time attack, it's about going for the fastest car around that circuit, whereas this, you've got a bit of a twist on that. You've got to pick a car that's not only quick in the qualifying, but also going to be quick in the race as well. There is a 12-hour race tomorrow that you've also got to prepare for.
Yeah, for sure. The Audi is, I think, the perfect choice for us, at least. It seems to be the quickest raw pace-wise. Tyres may not be as good as the Ferrari or the Aston, but I think we can work around it for sure. So yeah, we're really looking forward to the race tomorrow. It should be a really good one for us.
Any other people in the qualifying session that you've taken a bit of a note towards that you think will be quite fast? Those that we can expect to see up in that Super Pole session fighting you?
Well, I think the given ones are probably Boothby and Grunewald, and then I think Smoljar, Fiala, Statsenko, Sharpinen. I think it's wide open, really. It's just whoever hits the lap. Of course, it's wide open for me whether I make it or not. I just need to not bottle, basically. So yeah, it's going to be really tough, really tough. The grid is absolutely stacked. I've never seen such a stacked grid apart from SRO.
It is incredible. Now we will let you get yourself into the mental space before we get into Q1. Thanks for joining us, though, Dara.
Thank you.
He's very calm and collected, Dara, isn't he? He's all ready for that. What is going to be an insane hour of qualifying.
I mean, there are lots of things to pick up on that. One of them, and you touched on it, Lewis, is that it's the top 20 that go through. So we lose over half the grid in Q1 alone. So 29 teams drop out. And something else that you've just been hearing about how stacked the entry list is. And bear in mind, you're only really going to see a third of it, because the majority of the crews for the race tomorrow are 3-driver combinations. There are 1 or 2 teams that have 4, but for the purposes of this discussion, let's just say it's largely 3. Well, it's only 1 driver nominated to do qualifying. So in other words, 2/3 of the entry you're not even going to touch until you get to the race itself. So if you think it's good in qualifying, then just add in driver 2, driver 3, and in some cases driver 4, and you really do get a stellar entry list.
Honestly, I've commentated on a lot of races here in SimGrid, or generally on Assetto Corsa Competizione, and the SimGrid VCO World Cup in 2021. It was 2021. It was a stacked grid. It was absolutely incredible. But then this is just that step higher. We've got some big names from across the world of sim racing. For anyone who's joined from outside of the world of Assetto Corsa Competizione, you'll probably know the teams. Oh, you might even, if you're inside ACC, you'll know the teams of Apex Racing and, of course, Team Redline, both of which have entries in this. The Team Redline one I suspect will be quite strong. Apex Racing team have had an awful lot of assistance from one of the biggest teams on the platform, being Unicorns of Love. So there's a couple of big names on that side. And not only that, then you've just got the drivers that they've kind of all brought in. If there's a qualifying session, David, that I would want to be in, I can promise you this is not it. My ability level does not match any of this at all.
What I find interesting as well is the nominated driver. So, as we say, most of the crews are 3, some 4 drivers. One of those is nominated for this session. Now, let's just take, for the purposes of discussion, Veloci. So they've got Eamon Murphy, who we know is good, George Boothby, who is going to be the nominated driver for qualifying, and James Baldwin, real world British GT race winner, esports champion, gold medalist for the United Kingdom at the FIA Motorsport Games, the only British team member to get a gold, and yet he is not the nominated driver for qualifying. George Boothby gets the chore, the pressure, the honour, if you like, of going for the time. So to my brain, you think, well, James Baldwin is clearly one of the stars of esports racing, and yet he is benched for qualifying in favour of somebody else. That perhaps illustrates that, you know, you need to look a bit outside what you think you know about esports racing, because there are plenty of other drivers of a good ability capable of setting pole position here.
Yeah, to touch on that Veloci car, of course, they were the SO Esports Intercontinental GT Challenge Esports champions. They won that. There was a bit of a mistake. Sorry, Eamon, if you are watching, to bring it up once more. Just close your ears for a second, and it'll all be all right. There was a mistake from Eamon Murphy in the final, the season finale of that, in the Spa race, and yet the team was super strong. They came up and over the problem. James Baldwin, George Boothby wrestled their way through it, and they ended up didn't take the win in the race, but they did take the win in the all-important championships. They're coming into this again with a little bit of height, a little bit of pressure on their shoulders. George Boothby is incredibly fast, though. So it honestly, for me, between those 3, to tell you which one the fastest was would be incredibly difficult. But we are underway then for qualifying as 49 cars. Oh my goodness, this is going to be a busy session. Track position, track space is going to be at an absolute premium.
It is, and also I would think, as you see a car there run wide, which was Darren King's Aston Martin, you need to keep your cool, because if you are going to spend the next 20 minutes, or counting 15 minutes, getting frustrated in traffic, it's all going to unravel. So if a lap disappears, if a corner disappears because you get stuck in traffic, you need to keep your cool and go again. But yeah, finding track space is going to be well nigh impossible, because 49 cars around Kyalami, it's a constant stream of traffic, isn't it?
Yeah, certainly is. Like I said, you just do not have much room to breathe around here. It's not a particularly long circuit. I don't know where I'd want to go out in this group. I'd almost say, especially at the start, for your first lap or two, don't overthink it. Don't try and focus your, like, oh, we're going to go out 30 seconds after everyone else and then go and get some track position. Don't overthink it. Just get out there, accept that even if there is a car ahead of you, if they're a second ahead of you, they're probably not a second a lap slower than you, which means that you won't catch them before the end of the lap. It might be a bit of a distraction, but it's about not overthinking it too much. We're looking at Apex Racing team, though, again. They're more versed with iRacing, competition over on iRacing, but this is sort of a bit of a step into the unknown for them. But again, they do have assistance from the likes of the Unicorns of Love, who are one of the very, very best. I guess, it's the same as in Formula One, where Haas come into Formula One, and then they get a bit of assistance from Ferrari and whatnot. It kind of just pushes them along a little bit and gives them the right advice.
what I'm intrigued to see in this is how people attack it, because normally when we discuss a Formula 1 qualifying session, and this is the similar concept, you're talking about for Q1 not being slow, just get into that progression number to get into Q2. Well, you don't really have that luxury here, because with 49 cars, everybody is trying to be in that top 20. You could miss out by thousands. So actually, even though the traffic is against you, you've still got to put in a pretty heroic lap to make sure you're as far up that top 20 and therefore not on the bubble as is possible. This could be absolute bedlam, couldn't it?
Oh yeah, and I said to you before we went live, I reckon to get in that top 20, I reckon if you are 30th, you are probably going to be around about a 10th, maybe even less than a 10th off of the cut-off time. That is how close we are talking about within this session. So the first few time laps are underway. You can see the track map there on the right-hand side. Anyone who has a blue dot, they are on an out lap, or effectively an untimed lap. Anyone that is a grey dot is on a timed lap. So those are the ones that are coming across a fair amount of traffic for those that are departing the pit lane. The 991, I think it's Kramer Racing, out of the they've just pulled the sorry, it's like and subscribe team, never mind. They've just returned to pit lane with an issue in the middle of the circuit, and that's Igor Ogoroknikov qualifying that car. That's a car that we definitely expect to be somewhere up towards the front. So a bit of drama already for some of these teams.
But now is where the fascination comes, because only now do we start to get proper lap times offered up, and the first target time, if you like, from Jakob Ostermann, the Austrian, who's got a good track record in the GT World Challenge Esports and IGTC Endurance Silver class. He initially did the gun time, a 1:39.785, a 10th up on Darren McCormack. George Boothby goes third, so there you go. Two of the drivers that we've been talking about already that should be up at the pointy end are exactly there. Luca Lossio, another very experienced esports peddler, switching from BMW, from SRO events to Ferrari. He goes now fifth, and he was another driver representing his nation in the motorsport games. So George Boothby pressing on, and so also there, look, is the Burst Esport Mike Nobel driven Bentley. He's got some work to do at the moment, because this is his first lap. He needs a banker lap, but as we keep saying, only the top 20 go through. So yeah, a banker lap helps you, but you've still got to keep on pushing, because you've always got to be able to respond as other people go quicker around you. Mike Nobel down towards the in-way left-hander, up towards the timing line. And when he breaks the beam, which is midway down the pit straight, let's see where the lap puts him. Only 32nd, not good enough.
No, not 2.3 seconds off. A few drivers that are down in that that kind of area that haven't really set a representative lap time. Sean Arnold, who's in the top 20 in practice. Same with Dylan Tanner, who's in the top 10. Tobias Gronewold, 34th. Another one of those cars that we would expect to see up there. And when I speak of cars we expect to see up there, trust me, I've got a list that's 49 long of those that we expect to see in the top 20. It's crazy. Enzo Benito, one of the very best drivers across a multitude of platforms in sim racing. Of course, Team Redline being one of the biggest teams, and I think voted the biggest team in sim racing quite a few times over the last few years. They are the top dogs, and Enzo Benito behind the wheel. I'm not sure how well they're going to do, because I always say to Team Redline, they're stepping into ACC, which is normally their unfavoured platform, and yet still, every single time I see them, it's like, oh, where are, they're still at the front. It's like, how is that possible? That is literally like someone who's a touring car specialist jumping into GT racing for the first time, being like, oh, this is actually, I can do this. This is all right. It's the same thing, isn't it? It's just going quick around the track.
Well, right now, Enzo Benito is looking good. This will be his first flying lap of the session then, as he comes out of the Crocodiles up towards Cheetah, towards the end of the lap, past the newly built but charismatic buildings that take you down towards the pit lane, pit in on the left, tight corner, and track limit's always an issue on the outside of this when you get to racing, particularly up towards the timing line. Enzo Benito then aboard number 69, about to put in his first lap. He goes 18th, he gets himself into the top 20, but with 8.5 minutes to go, there is absolutely no guarantee that he's going to stay there. As you look at Isaac Price now, the English driver for the BMW G2 Sim Racing team, he's another decorated driver, isn't he, in terms of successes? And let's see where this is going to put him, because again, he is way back in 39th. He breaks the beam, and what does it move him up on that lap? It does not. So that one got away from him, despite not having traffic around him.
Yeah, he was 3/10 slower on that lap than his personal best. He needs to go a little bit faster than that. Wild Things Racing going to get a little bit of broadcast time tomorrow, purely based on the fact that they are in the Honda, which is just, I mean, it's just cool, isn't it?
Yes.
Let's be honest. It's become a stronger car in ACC, but still, it's not really the favoured car around here. We're more talking about Audis and Ferraris, with the odd little touch of the odd Porsche here and there, are the ones we expect to be right up there. Aston Martins are strong, but I am concerned they might not be strong enough to get completely into contention. Certainly not into, or realistically not into Super Pole. We'll have to wait and see on that one, because that is a bit of a way down the road. Luca Lozier crosses the line, moves his way up into 7th position with the SimGrid by Vides team, of course, the team that won, or the teams that won the championship back in the SimGrid World Cup, SimGrid VCO World Cup last year. They've got that pressure on their shoulders. They're dealing with it quite well. They do technically have 3 cars out on the grid as well, between the 2 SimGrid Pro by Vides cars and, of course, the Like and Subscribe, which is a great team name, going to be said. So each their own. But that was the 997 that's returned to pit lane. The rest of the miles talking about that.
And you've got an Audi 1-2, because you've got Darren McCormack at the moment ahead of aboard number 110, the Wipperman racing car, Jakob Osterman. So Audi's 1 and 2. Yeah, Aston Martin, you were touching on, an extra 20 kilos of ballast applied for the balance of performance around here. And there is the car of Vegor Ogrodnikov heading up towards the end of the lap, number 991. So let's see where this is going to put him, because he's a long, long way back at the moment, 44th. For Ogrodnikov. It looks good to the eye, but is it good enough? The car goes over the line, doesn't improve, so he is absolutely mired, not only outside the top 20, but virtually at the back of the grid, because if you're outside the top 20, your grid position's pretty much decided after this session. That's a lot of traffic to get through in the first stint.
Well, Sean Arnold just jumped up into 26th. The first car at the moment, 6 minutes left to go in the session, that will be going out, because again, it is the top 20, will be this car. Rocket Sim Sports Valentin Barriere behind the wheel would be the first car coming out. You've got Triton that's just gone off there, SMP directly behind them, G2 Esports behind that. But now's crunch time in the session. 5 minutes, 40 seconds left to go. A few teams will be going out, getting ready for their final stints in the session. And the list of drivers that is outside of the top 20, where I'm thinking, these are drivers where I'm thinking they are going to go in. Valentin Barriere is one of them. Isaac Price is one of them. Enzo Benito is one of them. Now, yes, I know I am literally listing them off as we go down. But we'll move our way down a little bit further, because you do have Igor Rogatov down there. You do have Killian Ryan Meenan down there. Even Gael Valera entered. There's a lot of big names that are down there. Gerardis was up inside the top 20 in the practice sessions, as Enzo Benito does just about get inside that top 20. Half a second off of pole, but more crucially for this session, only 600ths above the cut-off line.
Yeah, and I don't think he's safe, is he? With all those names you've been talking about that need to be in there, he is still in jeopardy. He needs to go again. So Valentin Barriere is now down to 23rd, Isaac Price 24th, and Mike Nobel, who you might anticipate to be up there as well, he's only 29th. Yeah. So yeah, really, that last lap across the line is going to really determine the order, isn't it, of those that go through and the back of the grid that are then going to be decided with the drivers bumped out of qualifying. Sebastian Apostol goes through for the West Competition Racing team, 18th, half a second down, so he's in with 4 minutes and change remaining, but whether he stays in is up for discussion.
Yeah, I think one of the youngest drivers on the grid was Apostle. Not sure who is. I think it might be Dylan Tanner, might be the youngest. But there's a lot of future talent coming up through the world of sim racing, and Apostle was definitely one of them.
Can I wave the flag for real world drivers there? Because Alexander Smolyar, who has done quite a bit of real world single seater as well as GT racing, he was to be found a moment ago 5th. He's dropped to 7th. But he's in, and he's mixing it with the virtual racers. He's dropped to 8th now, but as long as he stays in that top 20, I think he's still doing a pretty good job.
I think he is an absolutely sensational sim driver. Of course, a race winner in the Le Mans Virtual Series earlier on the season at Monza. He was also this is to go with our partners in VCO for this broadcast. We did an event at the start of the year called the VCO Esports Racing World Cup. Not related to this; it's a different thing. But it was over R Factor 2, over ACC, and over iRacing. And there was only one driver amongst all the sim specialists as well. There was only one driver who had a podium in a race on all 3 platforms, and it was Smolyar. he is adaptable in the world of sim racing. As much as he is an incredible future talent for the world of motorsport, he is a super sim race driver. And in fact, when you speak to the RHG team who he races them on Virtual Series with, they will argue that he is potentially the fastest driver in their car, despite being the pro driver.
All right, well, let's see what he can do on this lap then, because as he heads towards the end of the third sector, he's got traffic nibbling at his heels. He's also lost half a second on this lap, so Smoljar down to 8th, and I fear not going to be able to improve as he breaks the beam. No, Harry Phillips is the next one to keep an eye to in the Honda, which is way wide, coming then out of Cheetah down towards Ingwe. Great corner names that they have at Kyalami. We'll touch more on that as the session and the race goes through. But Harry Phillips comes up towards the timing line. He's got to get into the top 20, and he does. He goes 14th. And now, with only 2 minutes and change on the clock, you've got just over a lap time left in the session. Now you're getting to crunch point.
Yeah, you're talking about a minute 40, roughly for a lap. So there is enough time to go out there and get one more. Killian Ryan Meenan in the pit lane, 2 minutes left to go in the session. Might just try and time it to get back out. Certainly does leave the pit lane. So we're one of the final cars to cross the line to finish a lap. We're looking at Aidan Walshingham, Visceral Esports, of course partnered by Assetto Sim Sports. They 33rd at the moment, way outside where they need to be, but in that kind of gaggle of cars which we do expect to improve. Nobel, Ogorognikov, all that is in that kind of region, might actually move up along with them. Alaric Enslin for Brabham Esports on our screen at the moment, going to complete a lap time and will start their final one with just 90 seconds left to go in this session.
And this is going to be tight, isn't he, of course, because the South African driver very eager to go well here. That Brabham livery works really nicely, doesn't it? Sort of, dare one say, Australian racing green rather than British racing green, but it works on the Aston Martin. But only 37th is Enslin. He gets one more shot at this. There's now less than a lap time left in the session. Alaric Enslin gets another go. Matthew Gauthier for Wild Things Racing is also pushing on, but he is way back, only 42nd. Now, he's 9/10ths away, which sounds like nothing, but he's got a lot of time to find.
It's a 40.1 they need to do, a 40.1. That's the time they're all aiming for. A few sessions already coming to a close, including Apostle and Sean Arnold. Sean Arnold did improve recently. Enzo Benito's just been kicked out, though.
Absolutely.
Bischoff improves up into 6th. This is going to be a very tight end.
Right, Benito is the one to watch now, because with the CV that he's got, that's almost like a book, you would definitely expect him not only to be in the top 20, but almost fighting for pole position. So he's got to get in. He's got half a lap in which to do this as he heads then up through Clubhouse Bend, heads now towards the S's and the climb up the hill. There is traffic up the road, but not that he's going to catch immediately, I don't think. So out of the S's, now the climb up towards Loikop at the top of the hill. Steep climb this, but then the trade-off is that it's a really bold plunge all the way down as you head through Mineshaft. So Benito up through Loikop at the top. Now speed building, and you can see that although that car is still there up the road, I don't think Enzo Benito is going to catch it by the end of the lap. On board now.
Yeah, there shouldn't be any major issues with that. Traffic's far enough ahead coming down to the Crocodiles. Really tricky braking zone here. Right-hander using the curb quite nicely as Benito straight over to the left, where you can use quite a lot of that runoff. Penultimate corner they're going through. Cheetah, it's very difficult and so easy to get the track in front of that. That might have been a little bit slow there for Benito. He's got one final corner to do. Is it going to be enough? He's 21st at the moment. Could be missing out by 0.005 of a second. Is it going to be him or is it going to be Caracas, who I think is improving behind? Benito comes across the line and it's not enough. Enzo Benito 21st. Oh my goodness.
Well, that's one of the surprises, isn't it? We were suggesting that it was going to be brutal, and there is proof of it. Isaac Price then, 13th, takes the approach to the checkered flag. Good effort then by Isaac Price to get himself into the top 13. But out of all of that then, it is Darren McCormack that tops the times and does so by, what, 0.3 of a second, which is quite a margin given the level of competitiveness of this grid.
Yeah, Race Anywhere SimSport would be the last one, potentially going out. Low Fuel Motorsport will be coming round. They're about a 10th up on themselves at the moment, which won't actually improve them any positions up the order. Caracas, though, has just improved, was 22nd and moves up to get himself inside that top 20, inside Q2. Wow, what an end to the session there. Big names already out already, but a superb lap from the Lithuanian driver to get up inside that top 20.
So it is McCormack then who tops the times from Tobias Grunewald, and third, having been there or thereabouts all the way through the session, is Jakob Osterman, and fourth, come the end of the session, George Boothby. So some of those names that we were touching on earlier have proved their validity because they're at the pointy end and have qualified ahead of Alexander Smolya, who got fifth in the end. So he was dropping down the order when we last looked at his efforts. He has fought his way back to fifth and, of course, progresses into Q2. Now, this is going to be even more brutal in a sense because you lose half of the field. So 20 go in and 10 come out. But, Lewis, they've got less time to do the Lappery. Only 12 minutes now, not the 15 that we've just had.
Yeah, and those 3 minutes, I mean, realistically, when you think about it around here, that's really, it's an extra lap in your session, which is thrown straight into the bin, so we won't see them take to those. We'll take a look, though, at the order from the session. Williams Esports, Unicorns of Love, Vipperman Racing. Super qualifying time for Vipperman Racing to be up there. Triton Racing, the highest placed Aston Martin behind Veloce and SMP Racing Esports. Yaz Heat, Kramer Racing Esports, one team that's done quite well over in the SRO Esports affairs. GTWR, Simrad.Pro by VDES. Jean Lacey Esports Academy having two cars there in 11th and 12th position, where we get BMW G2 Esports. Great improvement from Isaac Price and from Grantis Caracas to get to 13th and 14th at the end of that session before we get Veloce. But all of those separated by just over half a second. GTWR, Legion of Racers, Rembrandt on Esports, second of the Unicorns of Love, and Wild Things Racing. That Honda does get moving. It is going to be going on. Will be the top 20 moving through into Q2. Everyone else from this point on, David, is out. That we will not see them anymore, which is just brutal.
It is, but it underlines the competitive nature of this. You could also argue, and many of these drivers will, having been bumped out, that it's only qualifying. There's a 12-hour race. Anything can happen. But, valid an argument as that is, there is pride at stake here, and you know that they all wanted to prove to their teammates, as much as to the other drivers in the entry, that they are quick enough to take pole position. Well, 29 of them have failed.
Yeah, and that is how this is going to go. It is it's a tough qualifying session, but it's going to be tougher for 20 more teams. We'll speak to one of the 29 though, who has been kicked out of this session. It was one of those final laps we were focusing on towards the end of that. We've got Enzo Benito here in the commentary booth, and Enzo, talk to us about that qualifying session. I mean, it was tough, it was tight, but it just wasn't quite enough. Disappointed or still kind of proud and hopeful for tomorrow?
Oh, well, I mean, I think we made a mistake by choosing the car, but nevertheless, my qualifying wasn't the best. So, yeah, we'll see. It's a long race anyway, and they have good teammates, fast teammates. So maybe we can make some ground back.
Now, I've seen you racing on ACC before, but in the VCO Esports Racing League and Esports Racing World Cup, and then various other things as well. How are you finding the transition onto this platform, especially in a super competitive grid like this? It is such a strong one with basically all of the big names on the platform.
It's been tough in the last 2 weeks. Been changing sims. Been many races, many competition all over, and yeah, these last 2 weeks especially have been really tough. But this week we were focusing only on ACC, and still we are missing something always. But I think this will be our first endurance race for all of us. We just get experience really for next year races. I mean, we want to improve ACC and we want to improve it here, and we will try our best.
With being a part of such a big team in esports, which yes, you have been a part of for a very, very, very long time, Enzo, being Team Redline, do you feel that kind of weight of pressure when you come into an event like this to kind of represent that brand, and you're almost always expected to be at the front, and some days you just can't be for various reasons? Is that extra pressure, or is it kind of a relaxed environment in the team, understanding the situation?
No, I don't think it's extra pressure. The team makes you feel very comfortable. I mean, you know, inside you have to win after all if you are in the team, but they don't really say if you don't win you're out, you know. So I mean, it's kind of it's okay after the years of experience and after all these years with Redline. Anyway, I've learned how to kind of control myself over this situation, like qualifying and race, you know. It's been a lot better lately. I mean, I'm improving from experience But yeah, it's always tough. You always think about it anyway. I think nobody can ever get used to it.
Well, we will say goodbye to you for tonight, and then we will speak again, I'm sure, at some point tomorrow. Good luck, Enzo, and we'll see you in a bit.
See you guys. Bye-bye.
Enzo Benito there from Team Redline. Unfortunately knocked out in the first qualifying session here, but there are still quite a few more. There's still a lot on the table, and there is still pole position to be decided. But before we get to that, we've got to say goodbye to 10 more teams. How crazy is that?
It does mean that the pressure is on, and the pressure continues to build, doesn't it? I mean, that's like we keep saying, even before you get to a 12-hour race, which is pressured in itself, plus, of course, having to share a car with 2 or in some cases 3 other drivers. But Q2 coming up then, 12 minutes, and it's the top 10 that will go through this time. The time that you've set, you now scrub. If you get through into Q2, if you've been knocked out, you keep it because it determines your grid position. But now it's the time that you set in Q2 that determines if you go into Q3. If you get through Q3 into Super Pole, it is your better of your 2 runs in Super Pole that's going to count. Super Pole will go with the 5 cars that make it in reverse order once, and then they will go in reverse order again. So it'll go 5th, 4th, 3rd, 2nd, and then the fastest out of Q3, and then in that order a second time. So they get an out, a flying lap, and an in lap times 2, and you take your quicker time, of course, to determine the grid. So we're talking about pressure all the time. That second run for some of them is going to be the ultimate pressure, really, because that really is the last chance to do anything to influence the grid positions.
Yeah, remember, obviously it gives you that sort of feeling that maybe your first lap in that Super Bowl session doesn't matter 110%. But I do remember the Coach Dave time attack. It was the 3rd one that we did. It was around Watkins Glen, and Darren McCormack was looking like the strongest driver going into it. And his first lap time in that Super Bowl session, he made a very large mistake on. I think it was only 3 of them rather than 5, if memory serves. But still, he made that mistake on his first of the time up, and then had to come back, had to respond, had to do it again, with all the pressure on of it's either this or it's nothing. In this session, though, I think he's feeling pretty confident, David. I don't know if you caught the times, but he was 3 tenths. He did a 139.465, 3 tenths faster than Unicorns of Love. I wonder, is that him at full power, or is it because everyone else is just releasing a little bit and not pushing to their fullest extent, which would be a brave thing to do in that session, I can tell you that.
Exactly. That's what I was saying at the start of the session. If it were an F1 style session where you're only losing 5, then it's about not being slow. But where you're losing 29, you can't afford to not push, I wouldn't have thought. So I think everybody has been at 9.5 tenths, if not 10 tenths. But I don't think anyone's cruised through that because you just can't afford to. 3 tenths of a second is a massive margin, given that after that you're talking hundreds and thousands of a second. So it'll be interesting now to see whether Darragh is the fastest in Q2, and if he is, by what kind of a margin, because then we might start to get a proper pattern on this, mightn't we?
Yeah, absolutely. We've got a few teams of duplicates in there, being Veloce. I think they've got all 3. They do have all 3 of their cars, technically. You've got the 2 Veloce cars and Yaz Heat as well. Q2 is underway. Also got a couple of Unicorns of Love cars out there, as well as the, of course, Williams Esports, Whitman Racing, SMP. We'll be able to talk through all of them. A couple of Jean Lacey Esports Academy cars out on. It's a whole string of Ferraris, quite a few Aston Martins, but a couple of Audis out there, a Porsche and a Honda and a BMW. I don't know why, it's no bias, but I'm backing you, Harry Phillips, just because I do like myself a bit of the Honda NSX. We'll see, though, because this is going to be a tight session.
Yeah, we've said in real world GT racing, there aren't enough Hondas. And in fact, the first time we had the Kyalami 9 hours in the Intercontinental GT Challenge, the Honda was one of the star cars and had a really good run. So, yeah, I'm with you on that. It's good to have it, and we need more of them.
Yeah, so it's a pretty car as well. But I always like to go kind of against the flow a little bit, even though in this point, to go against the flow when you're at the highest level of sim racing, if a car is even half a tenth faster, a lot of people will tell you you'd be silly not to take it, because a half a tenth in this could be the difference, very much so, between you getting into the top 10, between you getting into that Super Pole session a bit later on. That half-tenth could make all of the difference. And hearing what Enzo Benito was saying there about the Aston Martin, how they feel they've made the wrong choice, I wonder about those 5 Aston Martins that we've got in the session. For King, for Caracas, who was actually very impressive in that session, of course, that improvement late on, for Stephen Rauch, for Dylan Tan, and for Dominic Blyer. What can we expect from them? Aston Martin might not be the best car around here, but it might be something you can just wrestle that extra tenth or two out of.
But with your experience of the platform, is there a difference between a qualifying car and a race car? As in, you may not necessarily have the fastest car over one lap, but it's 12 hours of reliability, of keeping out of trouble, of being consistent, that's going to win you the race and the money.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's why I wouldn't take an Audi in this, for example. As much as the Audi might be the fastest car, it's one of the trickiest cars to drive, but as much as in the hands of Dara McCormack it might be the fastest car, it does, as we heard from Dara earlier, it does burn through its tyres a little bit more. It is a little bit more unforgiving, especially over the curbs and that kind of. I'd rather take a slightly more predictable car, which the Aston Martin is. I would argue it's potentially a much better race car around here than what the Audi will be, but, and yes, I know it's a 12-hour race, but starting 10, 15, 20 positions behind in the danger zone, potentially, is that worth the trade-off? That's the whole thing, which all the teams have been spending a lot of time going through the pluses and minuses of every single car to work out what is their best option. For me, I'd probably go Aston Martin just for the slight safety and also to not drive a car which is completely on edge in a 12-hour race, which is going to be absolutely relentless starting tomorrow. Dara McCormack's going around to finish his first lap of the session.
And this will give us a target time, won't it then? As he comes then up towards the line, heads towards the timing beam, and with a clear road ahead of him, up against the wall. And the lap time is not good enough, because it puts him second, then it puts him third. The fastest, in fact, is number 149. So the Yas Heat car of Mikhail Statstenko, the Russian driver, the 19-year-old, another successful champion in esports racing. He briefly goes top, and then George Boothby comes along and goes even faster by 0.2 of a second. But that was an odd lap, that by Dara McCormack. It took a long time for the time to come up, and when it did, it wasn't mega.
I did think he was wide going through barbecue. We were on board with him as he did it. I didn't think he hit the apex, but I didn't know if he was going to pull the entire lap. But obviously he went wide at the final corner just to get that better run down into the first turn, or second turn if you really want to count it, turn 2 Crowthorne. It is what it is. I kind of get it sometimes. Yeah, you just back out of it and think, look, that lap's already gone. We don't have much time in the session. Let's back out of it and just focus on the next one. Let's not burn out these tyres too much, which is a problem in these cars. If you push too hard, obviously, on your first time lap, yeah, you might not have tyres for the second time lap.
Now, Isaac Price gets himself 16th. Not good enough. Top 10. So in Q1, that would have been okay. But now we're already down to only 7 minutes to go, and he's only 16th. So he's got to find more time. We haven't yet had a lap out of Smolyar, for example, as you look next at the Race Anywhere SimSport Aston in the hands of Grantas Caracas, the Lithuanian 16-year-old, and he's found himself lots and lots of traffic all around him.
Yeah, indeed. The fastest lap time, by the way, in the previous session, as I said before, was in the 39s, been a 39.5, I think it was. The cut-off time, or the top 20, was a 40.1. So expected fast time, boom, Dara McCormack instantly with a 39.5. I think we have to really aim for that 40.1 as being roughly the cut-off point. That was where the top 20 was in the previous session. I would suspect it's going to be around there in this. So that time from Dylan Tan there for Legion of Racers might not be good enough. Obviously, it is a shorter session, so there is that, but there's less cars on track, so there's more likelihood of actually nailing your lap time. Boothby goes up to third. Tobias Gronovold improves his personal best to go into second position with a 39.8. And then Smolyar up to fifth, now dropped down to sixth because Jaroslav Honzik's gone into fifth. So we are getting that string of improvements, all potentially just about within that cut-off.
Which all comes with fuel load going down a bit, tyres coming up to temperature. Dylan Tan looking a little bit ragged though there, wasn't he, as he came out of Sunset, rattling it up on the curbs. There are other drivers aborting a lap around him, but Dylan Tan, I think he's going to press on now. He's all right for the moment. He's 8th, that's good enough. We've got 5 3/4 minutes of the session to go as he heads uphill. Yellow flag briefly there as he comes up through the S's, heading towards Loikop. But Dylan Tan, then, his next target, and he's under a 10th away from, is Caracas 7th, again for Aston Martin. But it's the Audi of Darren McCormack that's fastest now by just over a fifth of a second.
Yeah, it's going to be, like I say, it's going to be intense. If I wanted to be comfortable in the session, obviously once and all that, fair enough, I think you need to do a 39 to feel completely comfortable and confident, because those are the times which a lot of these teams are going to be aiming for. Just if you get a 39.9 onto the board, a mid 39.9, I think then you are safe. Osterman improves with a 39.7. Those top three, McCormack, Osterman, and Groenewold, I believe might be safe. Everyone below, not a chance, and I certainly wouldn't feel safe.
Dylan Tan has just dropped out. You saw him abort the lap, but he's now fallen down to 12th, partly because the likes of Luca Lossio have gone up to 5th, also Pavlovsky to 6th, Alexander Smoljar to 9th, mate that 10th, as now Lars Kisser goes 5th quickest in the Unicorns of La Ferrari, so a good lap by him. Lars Kisser up into 5th in the times now, and almost with every car, it starts to shuffle, doesn't it? Because we briefly touch on Smoljar, another one is Marco Bischoff. They're now bumped out of that top 10.
Yeah, and like I say, that's how it's going to be in this session. You'll, by the time you've come round, completed your lap time, sat down for a second, had a breather, escaped back to pit lane, looked at the times, you cross the line in 5th, you're suddenly outside of the top 10. That is how this goes. It's going to chop and change very quickly. I would want to be either the last car or one of the last three to cross over that line, just because then you don't think about it as much. There's no that pressure, because if you're the first car to complete the lap, your final lap, you sit there for a minute 40 and wait for those to cross the line behind, and you're sat there maybe like very tense for that entire time. You're in 8th position, you drop down one position, you drop down another. That's tension which I wouldn't want in this session. Just set it late, just throw it all in there late.
Or send it quickly, and then you don't have to worry. So if you can actually pull out the perfect lap. One I was going to mention briefly, he's 3rd at the moment, is Wojtek Fiala, who was 9th in Q1, and he's put himself provisionally 3rd in Q2. So he's taken a step forward. So in a way, as Harry Phillips, he was 20th in Q1, he's 17th at the moment. But in a sense, does it matter? Because he's going to get bumped out with only 3 minutes to go, unless the Honda driver can dig deep and find something else. Dominic Blyer, who's another decorated esports champion, the pole, he goes through. He was the Polish digital motorsport champion in 2020 and 2021. He is 6th in the times that aborts the lap. And we've still got time for at least 2 more laps to shuffle the order as Justin Stubenraut heads through, the 19-year-old German, another of the Aston Martin drivers. Yeah, in this very, very recognisable Rennbolt and esports livery. They're pretty much everywhere when it comes to competitions on SRO, on ACC, whether it is the SRO esports stuff, whether it is SimGrid. They've done basically everything when it comes to it. They've just never really capitalised on full-on speed. Way too wide. It was about half a second up there coming into the penultimate corner at Cheetah, went out wide, and that lap time has been thrown straight into the bin after all that work. These tyres might not be good for what is effective. It's going to be a penultimate lap. They might get a final lap onto the books, but yeah, that is a big shame. He crossed the line. I know it was invalidated, but it was a 40.2 across the line. Considering he ran wide at the penultimate corner, I think there was more time in it in that final sector. It might have been a much lower 40, which could be about where they need to get. Well, he might be able to dig deep and do it all over again. Luca Lossio was just tricking me for a moment. I was thinking he didn't look that quick, but then at the bottom of the hill, heading into the Crocodiles towards Cheetah, the pace quickens once more. So Luca Lossio is sort of on the bubble here. He's 8th, so he's in, but he can't really relax. He's got to keep on pushing. And there is now less than a lap time left in the session. So Luca Lossio rolls the dice for his last lap, pulls the trigger coming onto the pit straight. He has got Dylan Tan behind him, who is only 17th. So Dylan's next lap has got to be heroic. Over the line goes Luca Lossio, stays 8th. Dylan Tan, 16th, not good enough. And the BMW there, number 62, that is the BMW G2 Sim Racing Team car of Isaac Price. And he, again, is, by his standards, a long way back. And he's got a massive chunk of time to find. He needs to find something like 3/10 to be comfortably in the top 10.
Yeah, one of the 3 teams in sim racing to be officially backed by BMW. Of course, BS Competition being one of the other ones, and Redline being one of the other ones, although stipulations on their contract mean they don't have to run BMWs all of the time. It's only when they're wanting to represent BMW as part of their partnership. But in this one, G2 Esports and BS Competition always represent BMW. Let's see what the Rem Welton Esports car will do over the second lap time. Improved. Those are on the slightly worn tyres. It was an improvement, but you're absolutely right. It is not enough, and I just don't think those tyres can do a third.
Now, what about George Boothby? He's 7th, and the flag is imminent. We've got just over 15 seconds to go. George Boothby here has got the road pretty much to himself. The Veloci entry, then the Ferrari accelerates out of Sunset up towards Clubhouse. There's not much margin for error on any part of Kyalami, but certainly not around here. He's up the curb, which is okay, and it looks good. He's already in. So in a sense, even if this lap as outcome to the flag isn't an improvement, it depends whether other people are going to go faster, because that is now what is going to push George Boothby out of the top 10. Mikhail Statsenko goes up to 6th, so straight away another place lost for George Boothby. He's less comfortable now. He is 8th. This is where you come back to this pressure, and it's starting to build. On the one hand, he's doing everything he can, but the order to a degree is out of his hands. Those around him going quicker are also able to influence the order. He's got about 3 corners to go before he comes up to the checkered flag, and he's wide there coming out of the Crocodiles, but he's 2/10 or so up. So George Boothby has not given up yet. Up towards Ingwe then, last corner of the lap, slows it down through the box, goes left, back onto the power. A bit too wide for my money as he comes out of that last corner of Ingwe, up towards the timing line, goes 4th quickest. Great lap by George Boothby. Alexander Smolyar gets himself into the magic 10 as well. He goes 7th. Darren McCormack tops the times by only, in quotes, 0.198 of a second, but a really good effort right to the flag by George Boothby to go 4th.
Gradus Caracas, another one coming through. Last laps being made from a few of these. Where are they going to go? Yaroslav Honzik's already crossed the line. He's going to remain 15th. Gradus Caracas remains in 13th. Phillips moves up into 17th position. And the session comes to a close with no further improvement. So a bit of a drama late on there. Darren McCormack did improve just a touch, by the way, at the top of the field to go nearly 2/10 clear again. But yep, Pavlovsky, John Lacey Esports Academy, will be the first to say goodbye, unfortunately, to the session, being knocked out by one position by its teammate. Of course, Luca Lozio and Pavlovsky being the 2 John Lacey Esports Academy cars, 10th and 11th. But yeah, big improvements there from Boothby, from Statsenko, of course, Yaz Heaton, Veloce, and a pretty dramatic end to the second qualifying. We get to do it technically twice more. We've got Q3 to deal with, and then the Super Pole. And for me, I don't know about you, Dave, but I'm looking at this thinking Darren McCormack's looking almost impossible to beat. But I do say almost because he did mess up that first lap time in the session. And then the Super Pole, that is going to matter a lot.
That is when, with all the attention on you, with single car qualifying, the tiniest error can bite. And I've seen enough Super Poles over the years to know that the form guide getting you there isn't always replicated. So we shall see. It might be that other drivers aren't matching his pace because they've just been unlucky in the traffic. Well, they won't have that problem. They won't have that excuse in some cases when you get to Super Pole. So again, one man, one clock. It's going to be fascinating as we watch each lap unfold. But we've got our 10 that go into Q3. And Darren McCormack is the fastest of them from Jakob Osterman. And then a really good effort by, to go 3rd, Wojtek Fiala, 9th in Q1 up to 3rd, George Boothby for 4th, Tobias Grunewald 5th, Lars Kisser taking 6th in the times, 7th, Alexander Smolyar, 8th fastest, Mikhail Statsenko, 9th, it was Dominic Blyer, and 10th, just creeping in, was Luca Lozio.
Yeah, a super tight session. The top 10 on there are the ones we will see go through. Outside of that, they'll all be saying goodbye until tomorrow. But someone who will say goodbye until tomorrow will be Yaroslav Honzik, who I think it's probably about time that we have a little bit of a catch-up session with the man himself. Jardier is here in the booth. Hello, Yaroslav. Talk to us about that qualifying session. Tough to miss out there. I'm sure you got a lot of people sat there watching on. It was exciting though, wasn't it?
Yeah, oh my god, this is such a great qualification format. I love it. Like, I was saying, oh my god, I wish it would be only one lap, because in the first quali after first lap I was P8, and in this quali after first lap I was like P5 or something. I was like, please, you know. But it was great. It was exciting, very awesome. I was just, I don't know, I just couldn't do the last sector today. Like, in those last, I had 2 laps which were really good, and I was way too careful in the second to last corner not to hit that inside curb, and because of that I literally lost 10th, and I should have been P9 like very easy, but I just, yeah, that's why this qual is so intense, because I just couldn't make it, you know.
It's what makes this qualifying format so good, though, isn't it? How it is just so brutal. It punishes those mistakes, but you can't afford to drive at 90%. You have to push all of the time, and it's different to what, you know, when we see similar styles this qualifying session, where they can relax almost a little bit more, right?
Yeah, exactly. Like, when you have like a normal 20-minute quali or something, it's like so much easier than this. But I think this is excellent format. I absolutely love it, and I'm actually, like, to be honest, I'm very happy with the P15 starting tomorrow. So. I think it could have been way worse, and I think this is not too bad, because I'm literally like, I would say like 4 or 5 positions behind where I could have been if I would do like my normal uptime. But I think P15 is still very good, so I'm very curious how my both teammates will do now.
Well, let's focus on the race tomorrow. Of course, we're starting the race early in game time, 3 o'clock in the morning in game time. It's going to be dark on that race down towards turn 1. Starting 15th, I'd say that's just about at the top end of the danger zone. Are you concerned about the start of the race, or pretty confident that it's going to go cleanly in that race down towards Crowthorne?
Oh man, like 100%, I'm very nervous about the start tomorrow, because first of all, it's gonna be night, right, at the start of the race, which already is a bit hardcore, and it's also like an esport race for quite a good amount of money. So I'm very afraid to see the start, because I'm sure going to the first corner is gonna be 4 or 5 wide situations. It's a 49 cars. I'm actually happy like P15 is not that bad, but it's still around that very big danger zone, right, for the beginning. So I just hope we will make it in the first stint without any incident, any problems. Even if you lose some position, it's going to be fine. Just try to survive the first hour, and then let's see what's going to happen in the day.
Well, Yaroslav, we'll catch up with you, I'm sure, tomorrow. Have a good evening, and thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you very much. Thank you, guys.
There we go. Yaroslav Hodzik qualified in 15th place. And a super qualifying session it's been. Like I said, he was happy with 15th. And to be honest, on a grid like that, I would be as well.
What a great character, though, as well. So
good.
Full of praise for the concept. And even though, as you say, he's been bumped out of qualifying, loving every minute of it. If I were maybe a bit in the second half of the grid, I'd be tempted to start from the pit lane. Any accident on the first lap is ahead of you. You save a lap of fuel, and with certainly 12 hours ahead of you, you've got plenty of time to chip away. Whether any teams will roll the dice and do that to keep out of strife, we'll wait and see tomorrow. But with Crowthorne and the wriggle all the way up towards Barbecue, ready to catch you out with so many cars on track. I mean, 49 is a massive entry in anybody's book. I think there is some sense at keeping at the back of it for the first couple of corners, and then working your way through.
No, I'm absolutely with you. I always say when it comes to races like this, if you have a choice between being like one of those first being kicked out in Q1 particularly, right? You have a choice between being 20th to 30th, or being at the back of the grid, or starting from the pit lane, for example. Every single day of the week, I'd rather start at the back, because I know this track is hard to pass at. I know starting with the pit lane maybe isn't ideal, or starting at the back isn't ideal, but I would still rather do it, because if you are in that mid pack, I promise you, if there is a crash down into that first corner, which isn't a guarantee, we'll say that, but if there is, you are guaranteed to be a part of it, right? And I would just simply rather not, because you will rise your way up through all those that will have damage, etc., etc. I agree. Keep out of the danger zone. It's an endurance race at the end of the day, and getting out of the pit lane, or staying out of the pit lane for as long as possible without damage repairs, is going to be critical. Sun setting though, and Q3 is underway. Just 8 minutes on the clock now. It's it's as near as makes it for the Super Pole. You're only really going to get 2, maybe 3 proper time laps out there.
You've got a little bit more traffic around you, haven't you? But yeah, I mean, as you say, 8 minutes. But look, we've nearly lost the first, as only now is all but one car out of the pit lane. Smoljar's not yet on the track, so you don't get much opportunity in this. It really is being on the money straight away and getting one almost perfect lap in. You have got a little bit of leeway now with so few cars on the road to back off a little bit, keep out of trouble, keep out of the way. Don't get yourself caught up in traffic. So what you might see towards the end of the lap, coming out of Crocodiles and up to Cheetah, are people slowing down to let the car ahead go. Trouble is, if you do that by too much, you've lost the momentum through Ingwe as the last corner, so you're almost starting from scratch. That's what you don't want. You need to have some momentum to carry that onto your first flying lap. So round about here is perhaps where people will back off, and I think it is starting to happen, isn't it? Just to let the car ahead go, and then that shouldn't impede you on your flying lap.
Oh, you've seen some racing before, David. I can feel that. Yes, you're absolutely right. You don't want to back off into the final corner because it's just that can be problematic. We saw it in Q1. You want to, from now, I'd almost want to be pushing. I know Lozio's not there ahead, but I'd almost want to be pushing because you want to carry that momentum into the final corner to then build it up through the lap. But they are still slowing down, going down into the final one because Lozio was slowing down the group. Bly comes through. The two Unicorns of Love cars will come through the final corner line astern as we begin the final qualifying, or the final of the qualifying session before we get to Super Pole. That's a very silly statement. That's fine. I'll commit to it. I don't know who's going to be going through as a guarantee. I would say Osterman, who we're looking at here, for sure has to. Dara McCormack, really. And I would say the Unicorns Love car that belongs to Tobias Gronewold. Those three, I would say, are pretty much a guarantee. The other two, I don't know who I would pick. And even then I say an almost guarantee. That's almost.
George Boothby might be on that list.
Yep.
But, I mean, the other big improver, I keep going on about him, was Wojtek Fiala, Dominic Bly. I mean, they all should be there, which is the fascination of this, because it is simple maths. You cannot have all 10 in the 5. And so this is where, if they have anything left on the table, well, now's the time to take it off. Everybody has got to be absolutely on the limit here, because we're going to be talking thousands. And I suspect if there is one session in which Darren McCormack isn't going to be the fastest, this is it, because somebody else now will dig deep and find that little fraction of time which will displace him. But again, we will see. Look, we're nearly at the halfway point. We haven't got a time on the board. We're nearly at the halfway point.
Yeah, and here we are. We're going to get those first few. So what are those lap times going to be? The time that for what would be the cutoff from the previous session for 5th place in the previous session was a 39.8. First lap time from Stetsenko was a 41.0. Osterman goes slower than that. Boothby sets a 40.1. That's a bit more representative. His first lap time in the previous session was also a little bit slower, so we'll see him build up on that second lap. Blyer instantly goes up in the second position ahead of Luca Lozio, but still no one's broken the 40 barrier just yet.
But you haven't yet had a lap time done by McCormack, who's sort of towards the back of the pack. Let's see. 5 go through, remember, and we are now into the second half of the session. The margin between Boothby and Blyer, 35 thousandths of a second. We said it was going to be tight. There is the evidence as you look at George Boothby hustling on. So he is currently the fastest, using a lot of curb as well as he threads his way around the Kyalami circuit. The Veloci entry wide out of Clubhouse Bend. But we've still not got a lap time out of McCormack, which suggests that he's going for one shot at this.
Yeah, I don't. He might have invalidated this. I think he was out of the pit lane because it was Smoljar was the one that remained in pit lane. So I think McCormack might have invalidated his first lap time. We are being told it was invalidated from McCormack. So
in
that's
which
the
case,
second
that goes back to your point
session.
about pressure. Yeah, exactly. You can't be doing that. You can't be throwing away lap times. Last Kisser is back in the pits, but you cannot at this stage where you've got so little time be losing laps for any reason.
No, well, like I say, it's a second consecutive session where we've seen him have an issue on his first time lap. That will not fly in the Super Pole session. Smoljar crosses the line and sets a 40.0. McCormack's coming around, and what is it going to be for the 55? For Williams Esports, for the driver that's been the fastest all day, it is going to be the fastest. There he is, 39.6. And that across all the session, that is the slowest lap that he set to top a session so far. He set a 39.4, a 39.5, and now 39.6. It would still be enough, though, for fastest in any of the previous sessions. That is how much faster than everyone he's been today.
Interesting to see now whether he stays out and goes for another time to try to improve upon that, or whether he thinks, okay, that's good enough, I'm in the top 5. Smoljar is the one on the bubble now. He is in, but He's only there really by 35 thousandths of a second from Dominic Blyer. In turn is 13 thousandths up on Luca Losio, and all of a sudden attention turns to George Boothby, because having been quickest a couple of minutes ago, he's now down to 8th and needs to really dig deep to get himself back in there. McCormack, Statsenko, Grunewald, Fiala and Smoljar are the Fab Five that will go through, but it could all change. Here's another one that's in a big hurry, Jakob Osterman in the Wipperman Racing Audi, pressing on, clock ticking on down. He'll squeeze one more lap out of the session, and he might well need it.
Yeah, I mean, super impressive today, Wipperman Racing. Jakob Osterman, who I know has been fast. We saw him being very fast in Split 2 of the SimGrid VCO World Cup. I think being the champions of that back in 2021. Incredibly fast team. Great to see them in this race and being realistically one of those that are at the front. Could it be 2 Audis in that top 5 among a string of Ferraris? Could Dominic Blyer get in there as well? We'll have to wait and see what Osterman can do. Bit too much curb there going into Cheetah, down towards Ingwet, final corner, out towards the line. 1 minute left on the clock. There'll be a single timed lap left for all of these drivers. Osterman will cross the line, presently in 9th, goes to 3rd, 2/10 off. Boothby also moves inside that top 5 with a 2nd position.
Right, so Grunewald goes provisionally, Fiala is out, Smoljar is out, Losio is out, and Kisser is out, but Fiala is back in, because he now goes 3rd as he comes across the line. So Blyer is the one that gets kicked out, but he's not yet done. The session is still live because everybody has got another lap in it. Fiala has now bailed, Boothby has bailed, so they can't respond. And we've got 30 seconds left, and McCormack continues this remarkable run through qualifying. Looking at number 15, Lars Kisser, he's got to find the biggest chunk of time, 2.6 seconds. So it slightly makes one wonder why he is so far off the pace in Q3.
I think, yeah, he messed up. I think he messed up his first time and then the second one as well with the extra pressure. So this has not been a session to remember for Unicorns of Love generally at the moment, because they are 7th and 10th right now with the 14 and the 15, and they would definitely expect to have at least one car in that shootout. The checkered flag is out for the session. The final lap times will be coming in. 3 cars still in the pit lane, so we won't see an Aston Martin out in the Super Pole session because Blyer is in at 6th position. But will we see Smoljar? He's a 10th up at the moment. Could it be enough for Smoljar to move in there? The answer is no. Just 7th place at the moment as Kisser's coming up towards the final.
All right, so then Lars Kisser, as we've been saying, has got a massive chunk of time to find. Smoljar has taken the flag. He does not progress. Kisser comes through. Is this going to be an improvement? The answer, as he breaks the beam, is no. He stays 10th. Tobias Grunewald is 8th. He has got one more corner to go, so Grunewald is going to try to find half a second. He's up in the final sector. So Tobias Grunewald then comes through. He's got to find a 10th and a half to get in. And 6th means he just misses out. So he's done it again. Darren McCormack once more gets himself through at the top of the times and goes last in Super Pole.
Yeah, I think that'll be very frustrating for Tobias Grunewald to have missed out. Grunewald, Blyer, Smoljar, Losio and Kisser, those that miss out. And like you say, of all of those, genuinely, we wouldn't be shocked to see any one of those 5 being inside the top 5. Alas, there can only be 5 in that top 5, and they ain't it. That's how this session goes. It's how it unfolds. Insanely tight, and like you say, came down to an incredibly tight margin as we expected. But now we get to reset things and get ready for a Super Pole session where the top 5 will go out in reverse order and do a lap time with just themselves on track. They don't have any distractions of a car ahead. No funny business with any of that. It's going to be tough.
It is, but it is going to be absolutely enthralling, isn't it, to see who copes best with the pressure. So far, and he said to you before the session started, there is pressure on the shoulders of Darren McCormack. He has coped with it better than anybody. It's an interesting 5, isn't it, that have made it through here. Mikhail Statsenko the 5th, Jakob Osterman 4th, Wojtek Fiala 3rd, George Boothby 2nd, Darren McCormack the fastest out of Q3. Is that an order that, Lewis, you could have predicted?
To be honest, I think Vipperman Racing's the one that's maybe the outlier. But I would coming into this, I would have almost guaranteed at least one of the Unicorns of Love cars to be in there, as well as potentially SimWare.Pro by Vides. It's just how it goes. I tell you what, whilst we're looking at this, you can see Williams Esports, GTWR, Veloce, Whipperman, and Yazzie who will go out in reverse order of that. I think it's probably about time we catch up again with another one of those drivers that has not made it through into the session. Tobias Grunewald joins us, 6th position. I mean, it's tough. You've got to. I'm assuming you're probably a little bit disappointed, but you've got to be proud. 6th position in a 49-car grid. It's insanely tight out there.
Yeah, it's really tough to be honest, but I'm very disappointed, not gonna lie, because the pace was good, basically, all day long, and for some reason in that quali session I had no grip. I was just sliding all the way through the corners and stuff like that, so I didn't manage to get a lap together. And that was it basically.
How tough is a session like this when it comes down? Well, going into it, it's going to come down to potentially thousandths of a second. That's going to make the difference. Do you think about that, or do you just come into it and think, I'm just going to set whatever lap time I can and kind of ignore the rest of the field?
Normally I ignore the rest of the field and just try to go as safe and as fast as possible, because if you completely choke a lap, then obviously if you have no time at the end of the session, you're out anyways. But for some reason today it just didn't work because the car was sliding, and obviously then the pressure comes up if you only have one lap and the car is not in a good shape, and then unfortunately you make one or two mistakes, and that's basically it.
What are we expecting tomorrow? Because we were having a little bit of a chat earlier with Diane McCormack and what we've discussed between each of the cars. Obviously, there's a large contingent of Ferraris up there. Is the Ferrari expected to be the best race car tomorrow? Maybe even better than the Audis? Do you think the Audi's going to wear out its tyres a little bit too much? Anything like that?
I don't know. I think it depends also on how much it rains and stuff like that, and which setups other teams are going to drive. But I mean, it's a 12-hour race. Everything can happen. I expect the Audi to be a bit faster in the dry, especially you can see it already in the qualifying. They're like super fast, but I think the Ferrari is also very good over the 12 hours, especially when it comes to tire wear, as you said, and also I think it's not too bad in the rain. So everything can happen. We'll see.
Well, we'll let you go off and enjoy the rest of the evening. Get ready for the 12-hour race tomorrow. Tobias, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
There we go, 6th position in the qualifying session for Unicorns of Love. Ahead of their teammates that will start from 10th. That's just how that session goes. Someone's got to come out of it disappointed. That's exactly what we expect.
Yes, but as we keep making the point, this is a competition in isolation, but it is a means to an end to give you the grid for tomorrow's race. And, there could be a lot of disappointed people after the first corner. There could be a lot of happy people that have suddenly bought themselves a lot of places because an incident ahead went in their favour. 6th on the grid. It's frustrating. It's up near the front. You're ahead of most of the field, but you've got a lot of cars around you. Yes, there will be some hard luck stories, I'm sure, at the end of the opening lap tomorrow.
I think that's just how you've got to accept it. Is that it's going to be for me anyway. I think 6th position is going to be really, really disappointing now, right at this very point, because obviously it's a fresh wound. Tomorrow morning when we start this race, I almost think it's like, whatever. We're still starting towards the front, and there's no prize money for qualifying. That $10,000 prize pool that we've spoken about again for the SimGrid VCO World Cup is for the race tomorrow. $3,000 for the winner, $1,750 for second place, $1,000 for third, and then the rest of the prize money is spread out among the rest of the contingent. You don't win that much from grabbing pole position in this. Just the pride and honour of getting into that Super Pole, of carrying the confidence into the next day. I think they know that, and it's kind of like it hurts a bit now, but when we actually get to tomorrow, it's kind of like, okay, that's fine. We're racing drivers, and this is a race car. This is a race that we're entering now, and it's a 12-hour one. You can absolutely win it from 6th.
It's like any long-distance race. You've seen it at Spa, Le Mans, Nürburgring, you name it, for a 24-hour race. The driver that gets pole position tells you how it matters, and all the vanquished drivers tell you, no, it's all about the race. that's to slightly assuage the fact that their pride has taken a kicking, because they all want to be the fastest. Well, we still don't know who is going to be the fastest. We're about to find out, because the 2 runs of Super Pole are imminent. And as we've been saying, there are 5 of them. They go twice, so they get a start-up lap and a flying lap, and they will go in the reverse order of what we have just had at the end of Q3.
Yes, indeed. That was Stetsenko, who will be the first one out, qualified in 5th position. We can see we're on board with Stetsenko now. Then it'll be Osterman, Fiala, Boothby, and McCormack. And all of those lap times, all of the favourites coming into the session, whilst yes, we can pile all of the pressure onto I think it's important to get, because that's kind of how I would almost assume that this would go if I were driving. Not that I certainly would be at this level. But your first lap time is a banker lap time. It's a smooth, it's a calm, but it's a banker lap time. It's something, if you can set a low 40, I genuinely think you can be happy with that on your first time lap, as we see Stetsenko going wide, coming round to begin his session. Stetsenko for Yaz Heats will cross the line and begin. Yes, I know it says 57 minutes at the top of the at the top on the clock, but don't worry about that too much. We're only focused on the times, and right now, again, each driver will get 2 lap times. They go out in reverse order twice. So Stetsenko first, and then we'll see the rest of the contingent come through, and then he will go out again once everyone has set their time. Through the first corner looks pretty tidy, coming up towards Barbecue, where we have seen a couple of mistakes from McCormack's rear end sliding just a touch and taking potentially a little bit too much of that curb on the left hand. But it looks clean in that first sector.
It does look clean. He's heading towards Sunset now, where you turn in and it sort of keeps on turning. The sun in your eyes. Use the curb on the outside, and then you've got to drop it down a gear into Clubhouse Bend, which is slightly tighter than you first think. Just tightens a little bit more as you go around the corner. Short straight, and then you go left and right, sweep through the S's. But you've also got the camber and the gradient to factor in now, and you need a good grunt up the hill here, up towards the Loikop hairpin, which is a corner and a kink, really, as you turn and keep on turning, and then there's the kink coming down the hill, so it's a complicated corner. But Stetsenko is looking good here as he plunges downhill, ready to set the target time. Down towards the Crocodiles, this looks good.
Yeah, it looks a little bit wide at the top of the hill, but as we come down through mine shafts into the Crocodiles, we'll see how he makes this corner. It's so tricky because it's such a wide entry, funneling into quite a tight exit as we head up the hill towards Cheetah, towards the final corner as well. Again, a little bit wide, not taking any of that curb on the right, meaning I think this is going to be a slightly conservative lap time. I think we're aiming for a mid to low 1:40 for Stetsenko over the line for the first time. Let's see what he does as he crosses over it. It will be a 1:40.1. So I'd say that is a pretty healthy first lap onto the board.
It is. That puts down a marker, doesn't it? We were discussing pre-session about which would be the brand to have, and the expectation was Audi and Ferrari to be in Super Pole. Well, that's exactly what we've got. 2 Audis, 3 Ferraris. So Mikhail Stetsenko has done his first run, as next onto the circuit is Jakob Osterman in the first of the Audis, but the slower of the 2, if you see what I mean, because you're going in reverse order. So out he comes, the first driver, Mikhail Stetsenko, finishing his in lap, as now Osterman starts to build up, ready for a flying lap time.
Yeah,
he's off the road there, makes a small mistake, doesn't he? Rattles off the road.
On it, be glad you do it on your out lap. Don't do that on your time lap. I can't even begin to describe the pressure in this session. When you're on that out lap, you're just trying to calm yourself down. You're just trying to get yourself into the rhythm. Like, just it's fine. Just focus on getting a clean lap time. And the moment you start that lap, I promise you, as you could have your headset turned up as loud as you want. All you can hear is your own heartbeat. It is so loud as you are trying to throw this car around and around, especially if you know you're on a good lap time. It's why I hate having any sort of delta up in a session like this, because you know when you're on a good lap, and I don't want the distraction of looking and going, oh, I'm 2/10 up on my personal best. I don't want to know any of that. I just want to drop me, the car, and nothing else.
Well, right now, Osterman hopefully has got that error out of his system. You're riding with him as he comes down towards the Crocodiles then, but it's the next one that counts, because as the speed builds, this is where he's got to take a deep breath, totally focus, and dig deep. And let's see whether this is going to be a lap time better than that 1 minute 40.130 of Mikhail Statsenko. It is about to start as now Osterman accelerates out of Ingwe, turn 16 up towards the timing line. He will break the beam, start the lap now, goes through, and this is that long run down towards Crowthorne. The road kinks towards the right, and then you drop downhill, down through the gears, and turn it to the left and go for the clipping point.
Wow, we had a lot of confidence to use that curb over on the right-hand side into the braking zone. It can be a little bit slippery and a little bit sketchy. See what it's like through Barbecue. Over onto the right-hand side. This is where the mistake was on the out lap. You did see, didn't use quite as much curb on the entry, turning into, use all of that road and then that little bit more. Thankfully not, because sometimes you can get a little bit awkward going through sunsets. And honestly, this is one of my favourite corners of this track. It doesn't seem like much, but it's so much fun when you get it absolutely right. Leads into Clubhouse, tricky left-hander, and then down towards the S's. It's, again, much like we saw on the previous lap, it is looking tidy. Maybe it's not looking blistering, and that's okay.
So now through the S's and the climb up towards the Loikop hairpin comes Jakob Osterman. Is it good enough? He has a target, which of course Statsenko didn't have. He was the pioneer out of all of this. Up the curb on exit goes Osterman. That looks okay. Maintains the momentum, plunges downhill, goes for the line on the inside, rattles the front wheel over the curb, swoops downhill, sets the car up as he goes down through the gearbox into the crocodiles now. And you can't afford to run too wide there, nor here coming out of Cheetah. Get this corner wrong, you lose the lap, because you never really have time to recover before this final corner on the lap. The time to beat is a 1 minute 40.1. Is Osterman going to go top? We're about to find out. Then as he comes up towards the timing line, he will break the beam, and the answer is he does go quickest in the 39s. 1:39.750 puts Jakob Osterman, for the moment, the fastest.
I think there might have been more time in that first sector, which if there is, Osterman could be very, very fast. That is an excellent, absolutely excellent benchmark time from the Vipperman Racing team. Meanwhile, though, we've got a few heavy hitters to come out. All 5 of these are heavy hitters for sure. But Wojtek Fiala, the Czech driver who won the previous Coach Dave time attack, a super driver when it comes to session, well versed with this format, will cross the line to begin a lap time. And it's going to be a long 100 seconds. You can count them in your head if you want to. I'm certainly sure the drivers will be as well. Watching that 1:39.7, for me, that's put the pressure on to the 3 drivers that are coming next. They can't put a half-hearted lap time in here. It has to be good through the first couple of corners there, coming down through Crowthorne, up towards Barbecue once again. And we'll see what Fiala can do.
You're right about it being a long 100 seconds, but now the gauntlet's been thrown down to count 99 of them, because you need to be 99 or better now that Osterman has got into the 1:39. So the pressure is on for sure. Fiala, fascinating to watch, isn't it? Study of concentration, but he's a bit wide there going out of Sunset. Fraction of time wasted potentially. Let's see whether he can regroup from that as he comes then now on towards the S's.
Yeah, that looked a little bit too deep going into Clubhouse, and also super aggressive coming out of Barbecue. He is not laying back on this lap, is Wojtek Fiala. Up at the top of the hill, going through 10 and 11, super tricky here. Again, felt a little bit wide, same as what we saw from Statsenko. A little touch wide going into that first apex on the head down towards the hill. I'm not sure where this lap time's going to be. It looks incredibly fast, and in a sense that it's been aggressive, but has it been too aggressive? Do you need to turn that dial down just a touch?
It has been aggressive for sure. Maybe that's the only way he's going to wring the neck of this Ferrari, and in fairness, he has been wringing the neck of it, bearing in mind that he was down the order in Q1 but has risen to the occasion in both Q2 and Q3. I would be surprised if he was quickest, because it looks scrappy early on. He heads up towards the line and he's wide out of turn 16 over the timing line. He goes second, but could have been better for my money.
Oh yeah, 40.0. He is. You could see even coming out of the final quarter, a shake of the head. Not impressed with that lap time was Fiala, and I can understand why. Again, missed a couple of lines in there, went out a little bit too wide at Barbecue, missed the apex at the top of the hill. I think missed the apex going into Clubhouse, a little bit too wide out of the final corner. George Boothby, a lot of pressure on. We've seen him qualify for a couple of Coach Dave time attacks, and then didn't show up for them. Whip, obviously, no, Australia, it's fine. We'll see what he can do in this, though. This is where it does matter. Everything on the line. George Boothby with the lap time, and for Veloce, he needs to put on a good show here.
Well, he has done so thus far, hasn't he, across the three normal elements of qualifying, because he goes a little wide, arguably, coming out of Crowthorne up through the Juxki sweep and then towards Barbecue, where the road goes left, and you've got a good run out of that. That sets you up for this short straight along towards Sunset. And of course, this is the beauty for the drivers. They don't have to worry about a single car getting in the way. They've got the road to themselves. And this third iteration of the Kyalami circuit, one that lends itself to GT cars, but George Boothby may be just a little bit ragged as he went from Sunset up towards Clubhouse there. It looked like the car was driving him and not the other way around.
I did see a couple of posts from George Boothby not that long ago, actually, about how he has been in esports for a long time, but not on sim racing. He was, of all things, in Guitar Hero and one of the very, very best. He said he was talking about how that helped him mentally in sim racing. He's already been at the top of esports in one field, so it's another field, isn't it? And he is one of the absolute best. Again, this is the car which we'll see Eamon Murphy and James Baldwin in tomorrow. Boothby doing the qualifying for the team. A little bit of a scrambly brake zone coming into the Crocodiles. I'm not sure this is looking like a ragged lap, David.
It is. I mean, we said that halfway around it. He's certainly not leaving anything on the table, but I'm not convinced it's smooth enough to be the fastest. He's got to get into the 39s, and as he comes up towards the timing line, he will, let's see, go third fastest then. So a 1 minute 40.090. It's good, but it's not good enough for George Boothby. And now we're about to see what Darren McCormack can do, and this could even be a mid 39, couldn't it, given the pace that he's evinced thus far.
Yeah, he's done 39.4s, 39.5s, 39.6s. Can he just about beat a 39.750? There is so much pressure on the young man's shoulders as he comes across the line, the fifth and final driver to do so. He looks pretty calm in there, but I did see a photograph before this qualifying session. He was not looking calm. It's kind of one of those things, once you get going, once you get underway, you can sometimes just calm yourself down, staying in the car, see what he can do across this lap time. Again, tidy through the first couple of corners. What can he do? This is the corner that caught him out a little bit in Q2. And you can see, I think he was underdriving that quite a bit. He didn't look like he was attacking it quite as much. And I think that might be the right call here.
Well, he survived it, and it's going to be interesting to see whether this is good enough. So far, I would suggest it will be. He looks smooth. He's keeping it away from the curb to the most part. Now, pretty much everybody runs wide there, and it looks worse than it is because of the sparks flying from underneath. But Darren McCormack then, yeah, you might be right. If he underdrove Barbecue, he's stayed the right side of getting it wrong. And now, with the car heading up through the S's up towards Loicott, I think this is going to be good enough. It looks tidy, it looks smooth, and you can see how much effort is being put in by the benchmark driver out of qualifying thus far.
It looks more Jakob Osterman rather than Wojtek Fiala and George Boothby. You know, that lap time from Osterman was fast, but it was smooth, it was calm, it was collected. That is what we are seeing from Darren McCormack here. A little bit tight on entry there, coming down into the Crocodiles. Now with a couple of corners left to go, what can the Williams eSports man do to finish the first time lap of his session? Again, they will all go back out again in their reverse order, the one they did this qualifying session. So Senko will be out next. We'll see what McCormack can do. Out across the line, out wide. You can see he almost said, so that was an all right lap time. He'll cross the line and he'll go top with a 39.6. He almost, I don't know about you, David, he almost looks disappointed.
Yeah, I thought that the body language was suggesting, well, I've blown that, you know, never mind, I'll go again. Well, he will go again, but he's already the fastest. Back out then, he's Mikhail Statsenko. So here we go again. This is his second run, and it's the quicker of your two times. So he needs to improve on his own 1 minute 40.130. Trouble with going first is you're the pioneer. Well, now he does have a benchmark time. He knows what he's got to aim for. Right now, he is fifth on the grid. Not appalling in this competition. He has out-qualified 44 others, therefore, but he needs to be in the 39s, really, to be on the front row.
Well, when you say it like that, out-qualifying 44, that puts it into context as to how impressive these five have been through this qualifying session. See what Senko could do. Hits the first. It still feels a little bit wide. They're going down into turn one, but again, the reminder, the corners that he was struggling in, turn 11, Laircup up the top of the hill. That was where he was out a little bit wide. Pushes it to the very, very limit through Barbecue. See what he can do through Sunset. But he was overdriving a couple of these corners, which was costing him all of that lap time. And he just needs to almost slow himself down, not overdrive it. Exactly what you were saying about, you know, even in real world, they struggle to drive within themselves.
Absolutely right. And of course, the danger is that they think, oh, I've made a mistake there. I now need to go quicker to compensate, and they overdrive again, and you spiral away from actually what you're trying to achieve. So Mikhail Statsenko is pushing on. It does look quick, no argument about that. I mean, even if he's on the third row of the grid, which is at worst where he'll be, that is commendable in itself. Comes out of Loikop, drops down the hill. Looks a little tidier on this run, maybe to that point than he was on his first. So has that brought him back another tenth of a second or so as he comes down the hill, heads towards the Crocodiles. He's aiming, remember, for a lap in the 39s. It is not going to be easy to achieve it, but as he comes then now up towards Cheetah, clock ticks on down, goes right, rattles it up on the curb on the outside, sets the car up for Ingwe, and then the blast towards the line. Look at that onboard view. Beautiful, clear road ahead, which is what all the drivers love in a qualifying session. To the line he comes, over that goes Statsenko. He does improve. He goes up to fourth, and that was a 1 minute 40.077. So he's gone quicker, but I don't think he's going to stay fourth.
No, again, I don't know if that might be his intended line, Learcott, but he was out wide again, missing that first apex just a touch. If you're on the stream on YouTube, well, don't go back now, but after the broadcast, go back and look at what Dara McCormick does, or even probably he'll do the same thing again, same as with Osterman. Their line going up towards Learcott is much, much tighter. It hits that first apex nice. It's not focused too much about the exit because you're carrying the speed through the corner. I always get the feeling from what we've seen from Fiala, from Statsenko and from Boothby, whether it is intentional or not, maybe it's a Ferrari thing, I don't know, but they are running out much wider than I feel is the correct line. And so I'm just not sure about that one.
It almost looks like Statsenko is still on the money here, doesn't it? Like he's having another go.
Yeah, it does. He's not though. His session has come to a close. It is Osterman that will be the next one that we focus on.
Yeah, I agree.
He does think that's a question.
Finally, I think he's got the message. But the way he was hustling on, that didn't look like an in-lap at all. It looked like he was still absolutely flying.
No, I'd quite like to go and see what Osterman's doing. He's obviously a tenth off of the pole time that McCormack has set, a 39.655, the time to beat. But no one through the day has gone faster. We'll see, obviously, straight into the pit lane. That was an aggressive in-lap, got to be said. But sometimes, go and practice pit entry. It's not an easy pit entry around here. It's not the hardest in the world, but it's not an easy one, as we can see into the pit lane there.
Exactly. Right, so this is Jakob Osterman then, the Austrian driver on track and making his way down towards the completion of the flying lap. So his first effort was a 1:39.750, which is currently good enough to be second, and he makes his way then now down towards Ingwe, drops it down through the gears, turns into that left-hander, slight climb, little brow over the timing line, and anything in the 39s is where he needs to be, goes through, and Jakob Osterman down now towards Crowthorne.
Yeah, I don't know what, how fast he can really, how much more he can really get out of this car. It was a 39.740 for
he's found 100,
Osterman.
hasn't he?
Yeah, exactly. He has found 100th of a second over the lap time that he's just done. I believe this will be his in-lap, because that was his time lap, right?
It was, yeah. If he's done a 39.740, that was his flying lap. So he's found 100th, and that puts him provisionally second on the grid.
Yeah, so he's on his in-lap. So we'll head back to Wojciech Fiala, who, of course, at the moment it's an Audi 1-2 on the grid. Wojciech Fiala will try and end the reign of that being an Audi 1-2, but that's got to be an incredible lap time to get below a 39.740, even just to improve by 100. It's just putting the pressure on all of those behind.
Yeah, now Fiala did a 1:40.062 in his first run. So at the moment, everybody, the previous two, have improved. So that's the pattern. So if he can find a fraction of time, he should drop into the 39s, which just makes it even more competitive at the front of the grid.
Yeah, well, we'll see what Fiala can do, what Boothby can do also, and then of course if Dara McCormack can improve, he might not need to, but I'm sure he still will just for the show. Osterman will come back into the pit lane then for Vivian Racing as we'll try to head back to Wojciech Fiala. You'll see him come in again aggressive. They were told, by the way, to keep the pace up on the in-lap, so Osterman comes in and there is Fiala. So that's the apex hit there at the top of the hill, which is something that we did see him miss on his previous timed lap at Leerkop. So we'll see what Fiala can do. See if he shakes his head at this lap time. It's again, just from that, I'd say it's looking tighter than before.
Yeah, I mean, we've not seen very much of this lap, but it's the one that matters. It's his last roll of the dice. He comes then now out of Crocodiles, that little rise towards Cheetah, flick the car in. The danger is you go too wide and rattle over the curb and the grass there, which really ruins the lap. Into turn 16, into Ingwe he comes, back onto the pad, drags the car out the other side. Hasn't blinked yet, but maybe there's a hint of frustration in the face as he goes across the timing line. Fiala goes through and does a 1:39.992, so he has found a fraction of time, stays third, but a good run back.
Yeah, like I say, it's enough to improve. It's enough to put the pressure onto Boothby. Maybe he'll hang on to third position, but I don't know. I don't think Boothby's worried about getting into third. I think he's focused on one other thing. I think he's focused on trying and get on the front row of the grid. Everyone else has set their times, with the exception of Dara McCormack. Pole position could be on the cards here, but I'm not so sure. I think that Audi is just about fast enough, especially in the hands of McCormack, knowing the pace that he's got at hand. But see if George Boothby can improve. Just 2 more lap times to complete then to decide who's going to be on pole position in the 12 hours of Kyalami tomorrow in the SimGrid VCO World Cup. Boothby in once again, very, very aggressive into that first braking zone, going into the second corner at Crowthorne, up towards Barbecue. Once again, we'll see, right out towards that curb, pulls it in, nice and smooth, very aggressive out towards the curb. That was about as tidy a first sector I think you can do. That looked super aggressive, but on the money.
Yeah, I think lessons learned from that first run here. So the good thing about not having 2 laps back to back, but a bit of a break between, is that you do have chance to perhaps just chat to the team on Discord, have a think about life, and then put those lessons into practice on the second run. And George Boothby, like everybody, aggressive out of Sunset, but this looked quick, this looked committed. And as he accelerates now up through the S's, heading towards the hairpin at Leerkop, he has now got to try to improve upon a 1:40.090. He's down to 5th in the times, bear in mind. So, because of other people's second runs, it means that George has been dumped to the bottom of the Magic 5, and he's nearly at the end of the lap as he comes downhill. So, if the pattern continues of people going quicker on their second run, he should be an improver. This should get him back up towards the second row of the grid.
Wow, you can see how stiff his brake pedal there just by how much you see him. You'll see it again as the final corner. Just watch him shoot up as he absolutely slams that brake pedal as hard as he can. Here we go. See what Boothby can do. Bang, very heavy onto the brakes, coming down as that final corner, lifts off of it, sends it through. Is it going to be good enough for third, second? Is it going to be good enough for an improvement from 5th? Let's see what Boothby can do across the line. It is not good enough. And Veloce will start this race from 5th place, meaning the car we're on board with, this final lap time, there is absolutely no pressure on Dara McCormack, only to put on a bit of a show. And I've commentated on McCormack enough. He is in this to improve. He will be disappointed if he doesn't beat that 39.6.
So George Boothby, the only one that didn't improve, even though to our eyes it looked like a smoother lap, but it wasn't quick enough. So Darren McCormack then makes adjustments as he goes down towards Crowthorne. The jet ski sweep is next as he powers his way from the curb, moves across to get the apex for the sweep itself. You're climbing uphill at this point before you get to Barbecue Bend, turn through. Many of the corner names from the original Kyalami brought into play on this current version of the circuit, even though it's in a slightly different place around Kyalami itself. Sunset comes next, turn right. Let's see how wide he runs over the curb on exit.
Yeah, looking again very, very smooth. Maybe a little bit slower through the first corner. See what he can do though. Coming down into the left-hander at Clubhouse, up towards the S's at the moment. Again, looking very tidy. Got to beat that 39.6. The fastest lap time he's done all day was a 39.4, and that was back in the first qualifying session. He's getting slower and slower, which I don't think will impress him too much. He's focused on going faster and faster, out a little bit wide at Leerkop at the top of the hill, so he's going to scroll off just a touch of time. You can see a bit of a. I think he knows that this lap time might not be an improvement now.
Well, he doesn't need to, as you say. He's already got pole position. Everybody else has tried and failed to beat him, so it's only a matter in a way of ticking the box. He had to go out and do a lap in case he had to respond, but the message will have got through. And so Darren McCormack way, way wide there, coming out of Cheetah and sideways and gets it all wrong. Goes drifting into turn 16. It was a good save. Well, you said something about putting on a show. He has done so, but yes, the frustration is there that the lap got away from him But interesting that the biggest mistake of all came right at the end of the session, but it matters not. Darren McCormack will start from pole position. The first lap, let's ignore the second one, the first lap was mega, and to have been the fastest through every element of the 4 parts of qualifying, that's quite special.
See, I kind of wonder what would have happened if he actually had to respond on that lap time. Would he have been able... good trip. He's got good car control, this kid. I tell you. I wonder how he would have done it if he would have had that pressure on. Because I think with the fact he had no pressure, it means that there was nothing holding him back on that lap time. It meant that everything was going to be as late, as tight as possible, pushing much, much harder than you normally would, even in a session like this. I know, obviously, you go for proposition. You obviously think you've got to push as hard as you can. But when you have absolutely no pressure on, it gives you some sort of different aspect. Yeah. And it was a wild lap. We'll go with that.
Well, it was a great lap by Darren McCormack, and he has done it. It was pole position. The second one, perhaps we can turn a blind eye to because of all the sideways moments, but it was a great effort throughout all of qualifying, wasn't it?
Certainly was. And again, that lap time from McCormack, from Osterman, from Fiala, from Stutsenko, and from Boothby, your qualifiers in the Super Pole. I think we might, before we get those results, we might actually be able to catch up with Darren McCormack, as long as our broadcast director is all ready to throw them all in. Darren McCormack, before we get into that, because it was a sensational lap time from Dara. We caught up with him before we went into this qualifying session, and we were all kind of thinking we might catch up with you after the qualifying session, and we certainly do. A pole position. I mean, that was your first lap time there was absolutely incredible. The second one less so. We won't talk about that too much, but it's got to feel great. A massive weight off your shoulders.
Yeah, it feels great. Cheers, Lewis. Yeah, I mean, of course I'm going to be nitpicky. I didn't do a good lap in Super Pole, but yeah, I mean, I'll take the pole position. It was great. I think I topped every session, so yeah, it's looking really good for tomorrow. I'm happy.
He says he thinks he tops every session. He knows he topped every single session, ladies and gentlemen. I mean, it was a super performance. Going into that Super Pole session, was there any added pressure that obviously you were coming into it as the favourite? Obviously you had topped Q1, Q2, Q3. You were known to be one of the fastest around here, and also you were, through most of those, a couple of tenths faster. Not just like a couple of hundreds, but you were a couple of tenths faster than everyone else. Did you feel that extra pressure, or were you still coming into it pretty calm?
Initially on the first lap, yeah, I was feeling the pressure, but the second lap I just kind of sent it. Yeah, obviously made the mistake in the hairpin, and then the lap was pretty much over. So, yeah, it was. There was definitely weight lifted off once the lap was over. It was a great feeling.
So tomorrow, again, everything's starting 3 o'clock in the morning in game time. So it's all going to be very, very dark. Are you starting the car?
I believe so. Yeah.
Are you feeling like that there might be a little bit of an incident down into the first corner? It's such a tight braking zone down there. You leading? How are you going to play that one?
I'm just gonna have to watch my mirrors, really. Make sure I get a good launch. Make sure the guys don't get alongside. I mean, obviously Osterman will be very close. I'm assuming he's gonna be starting since he did quali. So yeah, it's gonna be really tight between me and him. But hopefully the Audi should leave the Ferraris for dead on the acceleration. So yeah, hopefully it's respectful and a great race tomorrow. I can't wait.
Now, very quickly then, qualifying is over. Does this mean that you're instantly going to jump off this evening and relax, or does this mean that you're instantly going to jump off this evening and be straight onto doing race stints like most sim racers do?
No, I'm actually going to be practicing for Flex Stream now.
The classics.
So yeah, the practice for this is pretty much done. So yeah, quali's out of the way. Get the setup ready for Flex Stream, and then we'll go from there.
Yes, indeed. A 12-hour race tomorrow and a 9-hour race on Sunday. It's going to be a busy, busy weekend for Darren McCormack, but a pole position here on Friday. Well done.
Thank you very much, Lewis.
And there we go. What a super drive. What a super lap time. That first lap time, David, was absolutely fantastic.
And it has netted pole position then for Darren McCormack from second fastest at the end of those 2 rounds for Jakob Osterman to be third fastest behind the 2 Audis. Was the best of the Ferraris then. Wojtek Fiala ahead of, in turn, the car of Mikhail Stutsenko, and then George Boothby ending up 5th, the only one that didn't improve on that second lap. But it has certainly given us an interesting front to the grid, and with another 44 to factor in behind, it's going to be quite frantic when we go racing tomorrow.
Yeah, it's going to be a busy, busy run down into that first corner. Going to be brutal. I think that's the important bit to note, that like we've said before, you're discussing the strategy among what some of these teams are going to have. It's going to be a dangerous run into that first corner, especially if you're in that mid-pack.
It is, and the sensible teams will nominate the sensible driver, if you like, the experienced driver that knows how to treat the first few corners rather than being a hero, because it's where you are at the end of 12 hours, not that one that counts.
Yes, indeed. Well, that wraps us up for this. Come back tomorrow. 10:40 in the morning. We'll be going live UK time, GMT, UTC, however you want to call it. We'll be going live and starting the SimGrid VCO World Cup of 2022. A one-off 12-hour race here around Kyalami. Been absolutely fantastic through qualifying. We cannot wait for tomorrow. From myself, Liz McGlade, from David Addison. Again, thank you for joining us, by the way. It's been a great qualifying session to have you thrown into the SimGrid. But until tomorrow morning, we wish you a very warm goodbye and a good evening.